Look around you. The world does not slow down for your pain. The storms do not pause for your tears. And time has no mercy. It moves forward, whether you rise with it or crumble beneath it. Many suffer not because of fate, not because of misfortune, but because of the chains they place upon their own minds. Weakness is not in the body. It is in the habits that poison the soul. If you do not see them, if you do not break them, they will break you. Here are 5 habits that make you mentally weak. Habit 1. Seeking comfort over growth. Comfort is a silent predator. It creeps into your life disguised as warmth, as ease, as the voice that tells you to rest when you should rise, to settle when you should push forward. The mind craves comfort because it fears struggle, and struggle is where growth lives. Every time you choose the path of least resistance, you make a decision not just about the moment, but about the person you are becoming. The body that remains still becomes weak. The mind that avoids challenge becomes dull. The spirit that refuses hardship withers. Growth is never found in the places where you feel safe. It is found in the moments when you want to stop but push forward anyway, when you doubt yourself but take another step. Comfort tells you that there is always time to try later, that you can start tomorrow, that you deserve rest before effort. But the truth is, every time you give in to comfort, you steal from your future self. The one who seeks ease today will find hardship tomorrow, not because the world is cruel, but because avoiding struggle today means being unprepared for it when it inevitably arrives. Look at those who have achieved greatness, those who have built themselves into something formidable. None of them chose the easy path. They did not wake up and decide to remain the same. They welcomed discomfort. They sought pain. They understood that real strength is forged through suffering. The athlete who trains in the cold, in the rain, in exhaustion, he becomes a champion. The thinker who reads when others sleep, who debates when others remain silent, he sharpens his mind into a weapon. The warrior who enters the battle without fear of injury, who faces the enemy even when he is outnumbered, he is the one who survives. But the one who seeks comfort, who waits for the perfect moment, who refuses to struggle, he fades into nothingness. The world does not reward those who avoid difficulty, it rewards those who embrace it. There is no success without sacrifice, no strength without suffering, no wisdom without hardship. The greatest tragedy is not failing, it is never trying because comfort felt better. The mind adapts to what you feed it. If you give it ease, it will expect ease. If you give it struggle, it will become stronger. Every time you choose comfort, you make it harder to face discomfort. You teach yourself to retreat instead of advance. You build a habit of quitting before the fight even begins. The weak mind does not break in a single moment. It erodes over time through small choices, through the daily surrender to comfort. Today you skip the workout because you are tired. Tomorrow you avoid the difficult conversation because it is uncomfortable. Next week you let an opportunity pass because it feels risky. One day you wake up and realize you have built a life around avoiding difficulty, and now even the smallest challenge feels impossible. This is the slow death of potential. It does not happen in an instant, it happens in a series of choices, each one easier to justify than the last. Strength is not something you are born with, it is something you earn by refusing the easy way. The illusion of comfort is that it makes life easier, but in truth it makes life harder. The one who never builds resilience finds himself unable to handle adversity. The one who never embraces pain becomes fragile. The one who always seeks pleasure finds himself empty. Comfort gives you nothing but the illusion of security, and when reality strikes, you will be unprepared. The man who never pushes his body will find himself weak when he needs strength the most. The mind that has never endured struggle will crumble under the first real challenge. The spirit that has never been tested will break at the first sign of hardship. The only way to prepare for life is to seek discomfort before it finds you. Train harder than necessary. Work longer than expected. Push further than you believe you can, because when the storm comes, and it always comes, the weak will fall and the strong will rise. Not because of luck, not because of talent, but because of preparation. Those who have suffered willingly will have the strength to withstand anything. The lie that comfort tells you is that you need it, that you deserve it, that you should wait until you feel ready. But readiness is a myth. There will never be a perfect time. There will never be a moment when struggle is easy. Growth is painful because it must be. Muscles tear before they rebuild stronger. The mind is challenged before it becomes sharper. The heart is broken before it learns resilience. You cannot become great while avoiding pain. You cannot achieve anything meaningful while waiting for comfort to disappear. Those who wait for motivation will always be waiting. Those who act, even when they do not feel like it, even when they are tired, even when everything in them screams to stop, those are the ones who win. And when they win, they do not look back with regret for the suffering they endured. They look back with pride, knowing that every moment of discomfort was worth it. The pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of weakness lasts a lifetime. Most people live their lives in avoidance. They avoid failure so they never take risks. They avoid struggle so they never gain strength. They avoid pain so they never feel alive. And yet, in their pursuit of ease, they suffer more than those who embrace hardship. Because life does not allow anyone to escape struggle forever. It will come in one way or another. The difference is, those who have prepared will overcome, and those who have sought comfort will collapse. The battlefield does not care for excuses. The world does not pity those who refused to train. Strength is not given, it is taken. And the only way to take it is to earn it through suffering. There is no shortcut, no secret formula. There is only the choice. Embrace discomfort now, or be broken by it later. Those who understand this rule their lives. Those who ignore it become slaves to their weakness. Habit. 2. Letting emotions control you. Emotions are powerful. They can move nations to war, inspire acts of great courage, and break the strongest of men. But when left unchecked, emotions are a storm without direction, a fire without control, consuming everything in its path. To be ruled by emotions is to be at the mercy of something unstable, something that shifts with the wind. The mind that bows to emotion will never know peace, because emotions are never satisfied. Anger will demand vengeance, fear will demand retreat, sadness will demand surrender. The weak man follows these voices, believing them to be truth. He lashes out in anger, runs in fear, and sinks in sorrow. He believes his emotions define him, that they are his identity. But the strong man understands that emotions are nothing more than signals, that they come and go like passing clouds. He does not let them steer his actions. He acknowledges them but remains unmoved. The difference between strength and weakness is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to feel everything and still act with wisdom. Those who let their emotions rule them are not in control of their own lives. They are puppets to forces they refuse to master. The world is filled with those who destroy themselves because they cannot control what they feel. A man in rage burns bridges that he will later need. A man consumed by fear never takes the steps that would have led him to greatness. A man drowned in sorrow isolates himself until he is utterly alone. Their lives become prisons built by their own reactions, and yet they do not see the bars they have created. They blame others, they blame circumstances, but they never blame themselves. They believe their emotions justify their actions, but emotions are not truth. They lie. They tell you that pain is permanent when it is temporary. They tell you that you are weak when you are strong. They tell you to quit when you are moments away from success. Those who believe these lies become prisoners of their own mind. The strongest men in history, the ones who shaped the world, were not without fear, not without anger, not without sorrow, but they mastered these emotions. They felt them, but they did not let them dictate their choices. They understood that to give in to emotion is to hand over control to something that does not care for reason. A man who acts on impulse is a man who cannot be trusted. If his anger controls him, he will turn on his allies when the fire burns hot enough. If his fear rules him, he will abandon his responsibilities when the weight becomes too heavy. If his sadness governs his decisions, he will waste years of his life drowning in self-pity instead of rising to change his fate. A man ruled by emotion is unpredictable, unreliable, and dangerous to himself and others. He is a slave to whatever feeling rises within him at any given moment. The world respects those who are steady, those who can endure, those who can think clearly when chaos surrounds them. A leader does not crumble under pressure. A warrior does not let fear stop him from stepping onto the battlefield. A man of wisdom does not let sorrow make decisions for him. The weak follow their emotions as if they were absolute, never realizing that emotions are nothing more than whispers in the wind. The strong acknowledge their emotions but act based on reason. They know that true power lies in control, in the ability to feel deeply yet remain steady. The weak often defend their lack of control by claiming that emotions make them real or authentic. But what is real about a man who allows himself to be ruled by forces outside his command? What is authentic about a person who changes with every passing mood, who is kind when happy but cruel when angry, who is brave when confident but cowardly when afraid? A man who follows his emotions blindly is no more real than a leaf blowing in the wind. He is directionless, unstable, and ultimately powerless. The strongest minds do not seek to suppress their emotions, but to understand them. They use their emotions as fuel rather than chains. Anger, when controlled, becomes determination. Fear, when understood, becomes caution. Sorrow, when processed, becomes wisdom. The difference between weakness and strength is not in the presence of emotion, but in the response to it. Those who collapse under emotion remain weak. Those who learn to stand despite it become unshakable. A man who controls himself, no matter the storm inside him, is a man who cannot be broken. To gain control over emotion is to gain control over life itself. The man who remains calm when insulted cannot be provoked. The man who does not react in fear cannot be manipulated. The man who does not surrender to sorrow cannot be defeated by despair. This kind of control does not come naturally. It is built through discipline, through practice, through choosing to act with wisdom even when emotions demand otherwise. The undisciplined man lets his emotions drive his every action, unaware that he is living as a passenger in his own life. The disciplined man understands that emotions are fleeting, that they rise and fall, that they are not meant to be followed blindly, but examined carefully. He does not react to every slight, does not fall apart at every setback, does not let his mind be ruled by temporary feelings. The world bends to those who can remain steady. The battlefield is won by the one who keeps his head while others lose theirs. The greatest victories in life belong to those who are masters of themselves. There is no strength in being easily offended. There is no power in throwing anger like a child throws a tantrum. There is no wisdom in retreating at the first sign of fear. And yet, many live this way. They let emotions make decisions for them, unaware that emotions care nothing for their success, their future, or their well-being. A moment of rage can cost a lifetime of regret. A moment of fear can steal an opportunity that may never come again. A moment of weakness can destroy everything that was built over years. The cost of emotional weakness is far greater than the cost of learning to control it. But most do not realize this until it is too late. They believe their emotions are an unchangeable part of who they are. They make excuses for their outbursts, their fears, their self-pity, until they have nothing left but regret. But those who take control of their emotions take control of their fate. They are not swayed by every passing mood, not broken by every setback. They walk through life with an unshakable presence, not because they feel nothing, but because they refuse to be ruled by what they feel. Habit 3: Bulleted responsibility. Responsibility is a burden that many refuse to carry, yet it is the very thing that defines a person's strength. Weakness does not come from external circumstances. It comes from the refusal to take ownership of one's actions, choices, and failures. The man who avoids responsibility convinces himself that his misfortunes are not his fault, that his struggles are caused by others, that life has been unfair to him. He becomes a victim in his own story, powerless and waiting for someone else to change his fate. But the truth is, no one is coming to save him. The world does not grant success to those who wait for it. It gives it to those who take it. The moment a man chooses to take responsibility for everything in his life, his failures, his weaknesses, his circumstances, is the moment he gains control. The weak blame their parents, their past, their surroundings. The strong look at the same challenges and say, "This is mine to fix." The difference between strength and weakness is not in what happens to a person, but in how they respond to it. Life will never be fair, but responsibility is the power to rise above it. Blame is the easiest path, and because of that, it is the most dangerous. It provides comfort without change, an illusion of righteousness without progress. A man who blames others for his failures does not have to work to improve. He does not have to examine his weaknesses or correct his mistakes. He can sit back and believe that he is not the problem. But this comfort is a prison, trapping him in a cycle of excuses and stagnation. Every day he refuses to take responsibility is another day he remains exactly where he is. And as the years pass, he watches others surpass him, those who were willing to take ownership of their lives, those who did not wait for circumstances to improve, but made them improve. Blame is a poison that robs a man of his potential. It feels justified in the moment, but over time it leaves him powerless. The strongest minds do not waste time pointing fingers. They do not dwell on what should have been, what could have been. They accept reality as it is, and they take action. The weak wait for life to change. The strong change their lives. A man who avoids responsibility is a man who avoids growth. Every challenge, every setback, every failure is an opportunity to learn, to adapt, to become stronger. But the one who refuses to take responsibility sees only obstacles. He does not see his own role in his failures, so he never corrects them. He does not acknowledge his weaknesses, so he never strengthens them. He does not admit his mistakes, so he never learns from them. His life becomes a series of repeated failures, each one blamed on something outside of himself. But there is no escaping the truth. As long as a man refuses to own his circumstances, he will never have the power to change them. The strongest warriors, the greatest leaders, the most successful minds, none of them became great by chance. They took responsibility for their lives, their actions, their failures. They understood that power comes not from wishing things were different, but from making them different. The weak avoid this truth because it is uncomfortable. The strong embrace it because it is necessary. Growth demands responsibility, and those who refuse it choose to remain weak. The lie that many believe is that responsibility is a burden, something that restricts freedom. But the truth is the opposite. A man who avoids responsibility is not free. He is at the mercy of everything around him. He is controlled by circumstances, dependent on others, swayed by events outside his control. He becomes a passenger in his own life, unable to steer, unable to decide his own fate. True freedom comes only from responsibility. The man who takes ownership of his choices is the man who shapes his own future. He does not wait for permission, does not rely on luck, does not expect others to do the work for him. He knows that the weight of responsibility is heavy, but he also knows that it is the price of greatness. Those who run from responsibility run from power. They run from opportunity. They run from the very thing that could transform them. And, in the end, they are left with nothing but regret, wondering why their lives never became what they wanted them to be. Responsibility is not a prison. It is the key to escaping one. Excuses are the language of the weak. They justify failure, explain away laziness, and protect fragile egos. But excuses do not change reality. A man can tell himself 1,000 reasons why he is not where he wants to be, but none of those reasons will move him forward. The world does not care for excuses, it only sees results. Those who make excuses remain stagnant, repeating the same mistakes, trapped in the same failures. Those who take responsibility find solutions. They do not dwell on what they lack, what went wrong, or who is to blame. They ask only one question: what must I do to fix this? And then they act. This is the difference between success and failure, between strength and weakness. The man who refuses to take responsibility will always find reasons to justify his shortcomings. The man who embraces responsibility will always find ways to overcome them. Life does not reward those who make excuses, it rewards those who take action. And action is only possible when responsibility is accepted fully, without hesitation, without compromise. There is no honor in avoiding responsibility. There is no pride in blaming others. A man who refuses to own his actions will never be respected, never be trusted, never be followed. The world values those who stand firm in the face of adversity, who admit their faults, who accept responsibility for their failures. These are the men who lead, who inspire, who create real change. The weak hide from responsibility because it is difficult. The strong embrace it because it is necessary. And in the end, it is responsibility that separates those who achieve from those who do not. Those who live with excuses will never understand this truth, and because of that, they will never rise. Those who take full responsibility for their lives, who refuse to let circumstances dictate their fate, who understand that everything is within their power, these are the ones who will stand above the rest. Habit fulfilling. Failure. Failure is a reality that no man can escape. It is the price of ambition, the test of resilience, the fire that tempers strength. Yet so many fear it, as if it were a death sentence, as if failing once means failing forever. The weak allow this fear to dictate their actions, keeping them trapped in a life of hesitation and regret. They do not attempt, they do not risk, they do not chase what they truly desire, because the thought of failure paralyzes them. But failure itself is not the enemy. It is the fear of failure that destroys potential. A man who is unwilling to fail is a man who is unwilling to grow. He chooses the illusion of safety over the possibility of greatness. He tells himself that avoiding failure means avoiding pain, but in truth it only guarantees a slow, unremarkable existence. The strongest men in history, the ones who left a mark on the world, were not the ones who never failed. They were the ones who failed, learned, and tried again. The weak retreat when they stumble. The strong use failure as a lesson, as a tool, as fuel for their next attempt. The fear of failure is a lie that keeps men weak. It whispers that mistakes define a person, that failure is permanent, that to fall short once is to be unworthy forever. This belief poisons the mind, turning opportunity into hesitation, turning challenges into threat. A man who fears failure sees every risk as a danger rather than a chance to prove himself. He remains stuck, waiting for certainty, waiting for the perfect moment that will never come. But failure is not the opposite of success, it is the path to success. No man achieves anything great without failing along the way. The warrior who has never been wounded has never fought a real battle. The craftsman who has never made a mistake has never mastered his art. The leader who has never faced setbacks has never taken true responsibility. Strength does not come from avoiding failure, it comes from enduring it, from standing back up when everything falls apart, from refusing to let mistakes define what is possible. The man who embraces failure as a teacher will always surpass the one who fears it as a curse. A life without failure is a life without progress. The man who never fails is the man who never attempts anything beyond what he already knows he can do. He stays in the same place, following the same patterns, avoiding anything that might challenge him. He does not learn new skills, does not take risks, does not push beyond his comfort zone because he is terrified of what might happen if he does. But in doing so, he guarantees his own mediocrity. He is not avoiding failure, he is embracing stagnation, which is far worse. The greatest regret a man can have is not failing, but looking back and realizing he never even tried. Time does not wait for those who hesitate, it moves forward without mercy, leaving behind those who were too afraid to act. The man who fears failure is a man who lets life slip through his fingers, who watches opportunities pass while others seize them. And when he finally realizes his mistake, it is too late. The world belongs to those who take action despite their fears, who understand that failure is not an obstacle but a necessary step on the road to success. The weak man avoids failure because he is afraid of how it will make him feel. He fears the embarrassment, the disappointment, the pain of falling short. He allows these emotions to control him, to dictate his choices, to keep him small. But the strong man understands that failure is not an emotional event, it is a practical one. It is a lesson, a result, a piece of information that tells him what needs to be adjusted, improved, or strengthened. He does not take failure personally because he knows it is part of the process. When he falls, he does not waste time in self-pity. He analyzes what went wrong, makes the necessary changes, and tries again. This is the difference between those who succeed and those who remain stuck. The weak react to failure with emotion, allowing it to crush them. The strong respond with logic, using it to make themselves better. The greatest men in history failed more times than others even attempted, not because they were lucky, not because they were special, but because they refused to let failure stop them. Fear of failure is rooted in pride. A man who fears failure does not truly fear the loss itself. He fears how others will perceive him. He does not want to be seen struggling, does not want to admit weakness, does not want to look like anything less than perfect. This pride is a prison. It keeps him from taking risks, from trying new things, from stepping into situations where he might not immediately succeed. But the truth is, no one who matters respects a man who is afraid to try. Those who laugh at failure are always the ones who accomplish nothing. The man who stumbles and gets back up is 10 times greater than the man who never steps forward at all. The world respects action, not hesitation. The strongest men are those who are unafraid to look foolish, unafraid to fail publicly, unafraid to fall, because they know that every failure brings them closer to mastery. The weak protect their pride at the cost of their potential. The strong sacrifice their pride in pursuit of something greater, and in the end it is the strong who rise while the weak remain trapped in their fear. Nothing in life is guaranteed. Every great endeavor comes with the risk of failure. But what most do not realize is that failure itself is not the worst outcome. Inaction is. The man who never risks, never attempts, never puts himself in the arena is the man who guarantees his own defeat. He does not even give himself the chance to succeed because he is too busy fearing the possibility of falling. But the strongest warriors, the greatest thinkers, the most accomplished men, they all have one thing in common. They dared to fail. They took action despite uncertainty, despite the risk, despite the fear that whispered in their ears. And through failure they became stronger. They learned, they adapted, they grew into men capable of withstanding any hardship. The weak fear failure because they do not understand its purpose. The strong welcome it because they know that without it there is no progress, no success, no victory. Habit 5. Living. Living is the foundation of strength, yet it is the first thing the weak abandon. A man without discipline is a man without control, drifting through life, carried by impulses and desires that weaken him. He wakes up when he feels like it, works only when he is in the mood, eats what pleases his tongue, and indulges in distractions that rob him of time. He lives for comfort, not realizing that comfort is the enemy of growth. He speaks of dreams, but never builds the habits required to achieve them. He waits for motivation, never understanding that motivation is fleeting, unreliable, a fragile emotion that vanishes at the first sign of resistance. The strong do not wait for the right mood. They act regardless of how they feel. They wake up early not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. They work when they are tired. They train when they are sore. They stay focused when the world tempts them with distractions. Discipline is not a punishment. It is the highest form of freedom. A man ruled by discipline controls his destiny. A man ruled by weakness is a slave to his own excuses. The undisciplined man is his own worst enemy. He sets goals but never follows through. He speaks of change but never commits. He lives in cycles of failure, always starting over, always making promises to himself that he never keeps. He justifies his lack of discipline with excuses. He is too tired, too busy, too stressed. But deep down he knows the truth. He knows that the only thing standing between him and the life he wants is his own unwillingness to do what is necessary. He sees disciplined men and envies their results, but he refuses to endure what they have endured. He wants the rewards without the effort, the strength without the struggle, the success without the sacrifice. But life does not work that way. Everything worth having comes at a price, and discipline is the currency. Those who pay it rise. Those who refuse it remain stagnant. The undisciplined man does not realize that every day he avoids discipline, he chooses weakness over strength, mediocrity over greatness. He is not unlucky, not cursed. He is simply unwilling to do what is required. The body weakens without discipline, and so does the mind. A man who lacks discipline in one area will lack it in others. If he cannot control what he eats, he will not control his spending. If he cannot wake up on time, he will not meet deadlines. If he cannot resist distractions, he will not resist temptations. Weakness spreads, and once it takes hold, it consumes everything. The undisciplined man does not just fail in one thing, he fails in many. He becomes unreliable, inconsistent, incapable of enduring hardship. He avoids discomfort at all costs, yet in doing so he makes his life harder. Every indulgence today becomes a burden tomorrow. Every shortcut today leads to regret in the future. He does not realize that discipline is not about suffering, it is about preparation. The man who trains his body can endure hardship. The man who disciplines his mind can resist fear. The man who controls his habits can shape his future. The weak think discipline is oppression, but the strong know it is power. Without it, a man is nothing more than a victim of his own weaknesses. The undisciplined life is a life of regret. The man who avoids discipline does not suffer today, but he suffers in the long run. He looks back and sees the wasted years, the abandoned goals, the potential he never lived up to. He sees the moments when he could have acted but chose to rest. He sees the times when he should have persisted but chose to quit. He sees the men who started with nothing yet surpassed him, not because they were smarter or luckier, but because they were willing to endure. And in that moment he realizes the cost of his weakness. Time does not return. Opportunities do not wait. The man who lacks discipline believes he is avoiding hardship, but he is only postponing a greater suffering. One day he will wish he had done more, pushed harder, committed fully, but by then it will be too late. The difference between a man who achieves and a man who fails is simple. One is disciplined, the other is not. The disciplined man builds a future he can be proud of. The undisciplined man lives in the shadow of what could have been. Discipline is not about feeling strong. It is about becoming strong. The undisciplined man waits to feel ready, waits for the right time, waits for inspiration. But the disciplined man understands that waiting is a weakness. He acts whether he feels like it or not. He knows that real strength is built in the moments when it would be easier to quit. He trains when he is tired. He works when he is unmotivated. He studies when distractions are calling. He does not make decisions based on emotions. He makes decisions based on what must be done. And over time, this discipline becomes who he is. It becomes effortless, natural, ingrained in his character. The weak believe discipline is about force, about suffering, about deprivation, but the strong know that discipline is about mastery of the body, the mind, the soul. A man who is disciplined does not need motivation. He does not need external validation. He does not need anything but his own will. He is unstoppable because he does not allow anything, not even himself, to get in the way of his progress. A disciplined man is a dangerous man. He is not controlled by laziness, by weakness, by distractions. He does not make excuses, does not compromise, does not break under pressure. When others crumble, he stands firm. When others quit, he pushes forward. When others waste time, he invests it. And because of this, he wins. In the long run, the disciplined man always wins. Not because he is lucky, not because he is special, but because he has built himself into something unbreakable. The world respects those who have control over themselves. The undisciplined are ignored, forgotten, left behind, but the disciplined are admired, followed, remembered. They are the ones who set the standard, who lead by example, who prove that discipline is not just a tool for success, it is the foundation of all strength. Those who live without it will always remain weak, waiting for change that will never earn. But those who embrace discipline take what they desire. They do not wait. They do not hope. They do what must be done. And because of that, they rise. The choice is yours. Your mind is your weapon, but only if you sharpen it. Every day, you are either building strength or feeding weakness. The choice is yours. Will you break free from these habits, or will you let them break you? The world will not wait for you to decide. Choose now. Choose strength. Choose resilience. And never look back. Thank you.